Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Suisuki. Coming up.
I stand before you today with an overwhelming feeling of gratitude and inspiration.
FESPAC comes to a close. Also,
these competitions serve as a critical platform to identify young talent.
The Micronesian Games are underway in the Marshall Islands, and a Pasifika Māori milk company lands a sweet deal. The director of the Festival of Pacific Arts and Culture says he hopes the event fosters bonds between Pacific states and inspires future generations to make an impact on mitigating climate change. During the closing ceremony, delegations from 25 nations and thousands of people packed the University of Hawaii at Manoa. A standing ovation and special acknowledgement was also made to West Papua, New Caledonia and Vanuatu. The 10-day event wraps up Pacific Island nations showcasing their rich heritage and artistic talents. Tiana Haxton has been covering the event in Honolulu.
Perhaps the most important part of this festival is when the 10-year-old, born to Palauan parents, was able to visit his people, and in 20 years is getting a PhD in ocean science because he's concerned about the ocean around Palau.
That's the Festival of Pacific Arts and Culture Director Aaron Salah giving his final remarks during the closing ceremony of the 13th FESPAC. The curtains draw to a close for the 10-day event, which aims to foster greater understanding of Pacific cultures across the globe.
More than 100,000 people engaged with the festival. For all of you who are Pacific Islanders living here in the diaspora, this festival was for you.
The roots of FESPAC trace back to the 1970s when Pacific Island nations commenced discussion on the need to preserve and promote their unique cultural identities. The hope was to create a space where Pacific Islanders could convene to share their traditional arts, crafts, music, dance and oral traditions with the world. SPC's Deputy Director General Operations and Integration of NOMEA, Maria Fuata, says this year's historic event has been memorable.
I stand before you today with an overwhelming feeling of gratitude and inspiration of all the experiences that we have witnessed in the past 10 days. As a Pacific community, we have embarked on a journey of cultural exchange, artistic expression and community building that has left an indelible mark on our hearts and our minds.
Meanwhile, Dr. Salah says once the event ends, it's important to maintain the connections going forward.
Please know that it was an absolute privilege to serve as festival director, to bring us all together. Let us also assert it is our responsibility now to not step away from the table. That all of you ancestors who we sit amongst now, you also have a responsibility to make sure that we don't fall away from the table again.
Meanwhile, Emil Kairua, hailing from the Cook Islands, becomes the next festival director for FESPAC 14th in 4 years' time.
I invite every single person in this place and those around the world, if you are Pasifika, to make your journey, start preparing for 2028 as we prepare for FESPAC 14. Let us all make the next family reunion in 2028 the biggest and the best. Hawaii, mahalo nui loa, mahalo nui loa, mahalo nui loa.
The next Festival of Pacific Arts and Culture will be held in New Caledonia in 2028.
The Micronesian Games are underway in Majuro in the Marshall Islands, with 10 islands in the sub-region participating in 13 sports, including unique categories such as coconut climbing and spearfishing. A colourful opening ceremony was held on Saturday night with traditional performances, music and fireworks. Koroi Hawkins spoke with our correspondent in the Marshall Islands, Giff Johnson, about the Games.
Well, this is the biggest event ever, the Micronesian Games. It's the biggest event ever to be hosted in the Marshall Islands, so it's a really big deal for the country. And yeah, we've got around 1,000 visiting athletes, maybe more, plus 200 plus from the Marshall Islands. So it's a huge group, and the opening ceremony was a blast. There's no other way to describe it. It was really well done. They went, had everybody parade around. You had a number of the islands had their sports people dressed in traditional outfits, and just a lot of pride from all the different countries. Kiribati did a dance as they got up by the podium where the VIPs are, and just a lot of good spirit. And then it segued into music and dancing and just all kinds of stuff on the stage that was set up that went for many, as nobody minds staying up late on a Saturday night. So they had a band in from Hawaii. They had lots of local performers. Yeah, so it was just a very exciting kickoff, I think. And what was really amazing about it, and just shows you how things work, is that at 4 o'clock, the skies opened up and it just was like a monsoon rain. And this is 2 hours before the opening ceremony on an outdoor track. And it just poured and poured and poured. The roads were flooded. I mean, I couldn't even get out of my office without getting it was like, like half a meter of water on the roads. Like literally, it was amazing. But 45 minutes, an hour before the start, it just stopped raining and the sky cleared, and it was great all night. So it was just one of those special evenings, and it worked really well.
Nice. Sounds like an amazing opening. And we had eight countries there, but I see from what you're reporting, there are actually 10 islands competing, and still 14 sports. So what are some of the highlights for
I think it's tournament? 13. I think it's actually 13 sports, but it's Palau, Yap, Guam, Northern Marianas, Chuuk, Pohnpei, Koh Rai, Nauru, and Kiribati, and the Marshall Islands. And in the micro games, the 4 FSM states play as individual states rather than as the Federated States of Micronesia, right? So it gives all of them more opportunities to do their thing. So yeah, we've got, the Nauruans sent a huge delegation, which we expect. They got their own airplane, right? But Nauru Airlines was chartered by a number of the teams. Palau came in on Nauru as well as on United. And yeah, the Palauans, I think, have the second biggest delegation, and the Nauruans very close behind them. So yeah, 10 islands competing. And actually, basketball and beach volleyball started before the opening ceremony because there's so much in volleyball and basketball that they had to get it started. So we already have 6 medals have been awarded in 3-on-3 basketball, with Guam winning the gold for both men and women. But other teams doing well. The Marshall Islands got on the board with its first medal in 3-on-3 basketball. The women picked up a bronze. The Nauru women got the silver medal in 3-on-3 basketball, and which is a real testament to the progress of women's basketball in Nauru, right? That they got into the gold medal game. And Palau challenged Guam in the gold medal game and lost, so they got silver. So there was just a lot of great action yesterday for that 3-on-3 basketball. Now the regular basketball tournament started today, and that'll be a week long. Essentially, the playoffs, the gold games will be on the weekend. Also starting today is softball, women's softball, and also weightlifting. So the the big thing for the Marshall Islands and weightlifting in particular is that Maddie Sasser, who is a very noted female wrestler here, who qualified for the Rio Olympics back a few years ago on her own merits, which shows you, I mean, she's an international class lifter. She's lifting at 4:00, so that'll be a big thing for Marshall Islands today to see how she does. But like there's several teams to watch here. Nauru, especially, and the Marshall Islands in lifting. I mean, Nauru is always a powerhouse in weightlifting. So those are big things that are on for today. And weightlifting is just a couple of days, and then volleyball, indoor volleyball, gets going this week. And it's the Micronesian Games, so we've got some really island type things too. So we have spearfishing, and that event gets going in a couple of days. It's a 2-day spearfishing thing. And we have Micronesian all around, which is island skills like climbing coconut tree, husking, whole lot of local island skills. So if you can get up and down a coconut tree in a jiffy, you may win a gold medal in Micronesian all around. So there's that whole range of games. And then wrestling, which is big for the Marshall Islands in particular. That's end of the week, this coming weekend. They'll be doing Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And then, so just incredible stuff going on at multiple venues already started today.
The Inga Province Provincial Administrator in Papua New Guinea says national politicians and even church pastors are supplying guns and ammunition to carry out violence. Sanders Saka's brother was killed in tribal conflict about a fortnight ago. He asked his clan not to retaliate. He told Caleb Fotheringham there's been ongoing tribal feuds in Inga since the 2022 elections.
It's a cultural thing. It's about tribal and family honor. The expectation to retaliate is perceived as a way not only to resolve conflicts, but as a way of protecting family and tribal honor. So it's an accepted fact that if you are wronged, you have to address that wrong. And one of the ways, unfortunately, it happens in this part of the world is by responding to matter, by reciprocating matter. I have been advocating for peace, to change that mindset, to allow the rule of law to take its course, and to value life and, peace. In this part of the world, we need to realize that law and order and peace is a necessary prerequisite to development, and all the other things that we aspire for and we hope for. If we don't have peace, you can't have kids going to school, you can't have schools, you can't have hospitals, you can't have roads. You can't not have free movement of people and goods and services, and it affects everything that we want to do as a government and as a people. So the way to promote and preserve peace is to change that cultural mindset about violence and how violence is justified in a society. It's something that we have to breed out of our community. Our people and country and this part of the world, the Inga province, are industrious people. They're resilient people and honorable people. I think one of our vices is the cultural norm of payback and retaliatory attack when you feel like you're wrong to preserve, family and tribal and clan honor, which is a vice that is holding us back from everything that good that we can aspire to and hope for. So that's what we've been trying to promote as a government. And in my time that I've been in this job, I've been trying to promote peace and get my people to see that there's another way of doing things. There's another way, better way of addressing conflicts and to do it peacefully and to allow the rule of law and law to take its course so we can all cohabit peacefully and look at the good things in life. A cycle of violence gets us nowhere. It keeps us enslaved to fear, intimidation, and violence.
How hard is it to change these cultural views?
It's a cultural thing that's been with my people since the days of our ancestors. It's ingrained in our DNA. So education and continuous awareness and messaging and driving the narrative that peace is better than war, that Education is a large part of that. Getting our people educated, and what does not make it easy is when we have well-to-do people from our part of the world, people that should become ambassadors of peace, and those that should be promoting peace, senior public servants, businessmen, educated people, leaders in church, government, and private sector, the people that should take on the responsibility of promoting peace, when they actually get involved in these tribal feuds and ethnic conflicts for personal interest, be it politics or be their own personal ambitions, that actually makes the situation worse, because well-to-do people that our communities and rural people look up to, when we don't become the voices of change to promote peace and prosperity, and instead we're promoting war and anarchy by supplying guns and supplying bullets and asking our clansmen to take revenge, it actually aggravates what is already a difficult situation. And that's why probably one of the reasons that me and my family took up that stand was to show my colleagues, my peers, those in positions of authority, those educated, those leaders in business and government, if they can take up a stand and say no to violence, we can bring about change.
So just on what you were saying before, it sounded like to me that you were saying people in authority are helping fuel this violence because they're the ones supplying effectively the weapons for people to do this violence. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Caleb. I'm not one to mince words. Politicians, national politicians are involved. Businessmen are involved. Educated, people, lawyers, accountants, pastors, well-to-do people that should be ambassadors of peace and change are, not all of them, but, we live in a tribal community where when an educated person, when a person that's a leader in business and government, when he says something, the people listen. So if the people in the villages are not listening, we naturally assume that the leaders in those villages are not providing the right kind of leadership. And that's a challenge in messaging that we've been trying to get across. All these tribal conflicts, a gun in anger, say an M16 or an AR-15 rifle, minimum maybe 30,000 kina. It's probably around 15,000 New Zealand dollars. Now, the ordinary person cannot afford that. A round that goes into that is probably around 100 kina in this part of the world. That's probably around 50 New Zealand dollars. The ordinary person cannot afford that. So it's these conflicts and wars are financed by well-to-do people with the resources. And that's part of the recommendation that I've made from my experience on the job up here, is we need to look at, changing law and policy to go after those that finance and profit from these conflicts, instead of just trying to arrest or, hold responsible that small person in the village with a rifle that is causing death and destruction. Yes, while he's responsible to some extent, the bigger responsibility is with the people that are financing and profiting from these tribal conflicts. So until and unless we go after these big wigs, this unfortunate, situation we have in the province will continue to be what it is.
Just back to your situation that recently happened, when you were talking to your clan and telling them that you don't want them to pursue violence after your brother had died, was it quite hard to convince them to not pursue violence because of what happened?
Yes, because the cultural expectation for retaliation is there. But my people understand that I'm a leader not only in government, but I'm also a leader in the family and clan. So my word is important. So when I say, there may be, a bit of, reservation about it, but people respect that. And that's what I'm asking. If the other leaders did the same to their villages and their communities, we wouldn't have this violence. We wouldn't have all these killings and destructions.
What started off as a meme has now grown into a business success story. Pasifika Māori-owned company Drink the Milky recently secured a partnership with Woolworths, which has led to its milk products being stocked in more than 20 Countdown supermarkets in Auckland. It's the first Pasifika Māori milk brand to be sold in a major supermarket, with the hopes of expansion throughout the rest of Aotearoa as well as other countries. I spoke with the proud Tonganiwean co-founder, Sion Angi, and began by asking him how the partnership came about.
First of all, thank you. Thank you for those comments. The partnership with Woolworths isn't easy. Essentially, it was a cold email, and thankfully they got back to me. I had to fill out all the forms and such and meet with them various times. But it was a difficult talk. But I don't want to ramble on too much unless you're going to ask me a question that will elaborate on that. But yeah, that's how I established the partnership initially.
Okay, I just want to take a step back and learn about your journey. What hooked you into the business world, and how did that lead you to creating your milk company?
Right now, I'm 23 years old. This all started when I was 19. At 19, I had a massive, multiple realizations that all occurred all at the same time. And then I realized ultimately, for me personally, I wasn't going to work 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. I needed to pursue something else in order to take care of my family and to live life properly, essentially. So at 19, I started several businesses, and then eventually I started Milky. This is my 8th business, and the rest were okay. Some were decent, some failed, but they were all learning lessons, and I applied that all to Milky, which is why we're able to scale so fast. And why milk in particular is because sometime last year I was actually walking through the aisles of Pack and Save Countdown and such, and I realized, I was like, hold on, where's all the Pasifika and Māori products on the shelves? I could get that at the morning markets or in Ota or Otahu, but I couldn't. It wasn't accessible at these mainstream places like big supermarkets, and so I was like, you know what? I want to change that. I want to bring some more. I want to create some products and put it on the shelf. And I thought, why don't we start with milk? That's probably the hardest competitive product category in the supermarket. And if we can smash out milk, which we fortunately are starting to, then we can do any other product that's Pasifika or Māori inspired.
So, what type of products are available from your milk company?
At the moment, our fresh chocolate milk is available at Woolworths, and that's the only one right now. We do have some other products that we had to put on pause because just of capital constraints, but we're focusing on purely just the chocolate milk market. It's quite easy. Everyone drinks chocolate milk, and we're hoping to grab up a bit of market share of that, and then expand from there. But I do want to say, and sorry for rambling on, but I do want to say the company actually started as an all-dye company, but I pivoted it to, we changed it to milk last minute.
What also caught my eye in your release was the mention of breaking generational curses. What are some of the barriers that you had to overcome in your life that you still see in others?
One thing I realized at 19 was how expansive and how big the world is outside of South Auckland, outside of New Zealand. There's a whole world out there, and there's a lot of people out in the world doing amazing things. And when people that come from South Auckland or from wherever can do the exact same things too. And so I'd say for people just starting up or whatsoever, just remembering that anything's achievable. Honestly, the world is so expansive. There's so much that the world has to offer, and there's so much things to explore. So you shouldn't limit your goals to just to Auckland or just to New Zealand.
With the reality of the world that we're living in right now, we've had quite a few disruptions, COVID being one of them. How will you ensure that the business continues on without the risk of closing down or cutting back?
Right. Fortunately enough, our team is quite small, and we don't do any sales directly to customers anymore. Everything's through stores, and if something like that was to occur again, honestly, it's all it would rely on is just us making sure our marketing is good. That's how we'll get through periods of times like that.
So I know that your goal is to have your milk products expand out to the South Island. Do we have an idea of when that will happen?
I can't say for certain, but I'm going to say in the next 6 to 8 months, given that, our sales and the demand, and it does well here in Auckland, and we'll move from our current 22 countdowns to the whole of North Island and then eventually South Island.
What other ventures do you have in the pipeline?
Well, and no one's actually asking this, but hopefully once the milk is got into an even higher stage, I'll probably look into bringing more Pasifika and Māori products to shelves for the mainstream accessibility. Because if you can imagine, you can buy noodles anywhere in the world, right? But you can't buy things like otai or chop suey or lu or any other products around the world. You can only buy that at certain places, and I want to make sure that's accessible to everyone. And then from there, I'll probably get into the tech space, because that's where I'm quite passionate about.
Do you think that there's a high demand for otai and chop suey and lu?
Oh, absolutely. You got to imagine that at one time, noodles was a household dish for people in Asia. And who would have thought that would have become like a staple food in everyday households? So it comes back to not limiting ourselves, and I don't think otai should be limited, and I think everyone would love it in other products like that.
That's Pacific Waves for today. To listen back, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā soifua.